my first season in the field, the Krytac LMG has been complete, and overall I was pretty impressed with it. At the beginning I had some hiccups that I had to kind of work out. I'll get into that a little bit later on, and then ultimately the gearbox failing at my last op of radio silence. All that we will get into, but to give a brief overcap as far as all of the internal upgrades I did between the barrel, the hop-up, the nozzle, the gate aster, the piston head, cylinder head, all those things. There's a couple tweaks that I did make post video series that some I had to, and some of them were just trial and error that I figured out in the field. Nonetheless, we'll get right into it. First, before I break it down fully, I've just obviously removed the upper from the lower. I want you to hear what the gearbox, when it ultimately failed, sounded like. I have my suspicions what it is, but I still want you guys and girls to be able to hear this. So I've already hooked the battery up, and I will put this in a semi. Hear that? Like something is just not going with it. So we're going to see exactly what that is. So yeah, the gearbox itself that failed, it's interesting. You can actually see the nozzle still moving, but the sound obviously is very weird, and you can just tell that something's not right. So we'll just on full auto, let's hear and see. So as you can see, there's the piston itself is not moving. Everything else is. So there must be something that's going on either with the piston itself, spring, something in here. So we're gonna have to tear that down, get into it, and address that situation. At this point to the failure, I had somewhere around 14,000 rounds that I put down range with this gearbox before the ultimate failure. And I can say, at least as long as we're talking about the motor, that the motor head, it might be a little hard to see, I'll try to get it in here, but the gear isn't too bad. Would I leave it in here for a while longer? Probably, but they do seem to get a little chewed up to where going into the next season, I'd rather just replace this pinion gear with something fresh. And because, again, it might be hard to see, but this is what's called a round head, not the D. You need a little puller, something similar to this. I got this off, I think, Airsoft GI, but you can find them at all sorts of Airsoft retailers. So this one got used to pull that gear off, and then also ultimately put the next one on. So there's that. Now the gearbox itself, what you're going to notice is that there is a lot of electrical tape. And this electrical tape in these different spots are covering holes that are usually used for grease. But what the issue is that these spots here are what's throwing off the gate aster, and I was getting different errors and whatnot that was either causing me to lose the semi-auto or full auto, or just straight up stop working until I would hook up the USB link and reset it. So that's what these are there for. However, at least with getting into the gearbox, I will probably have to go ahead and take this off, and you will see the different holes here, and eventually I'll just put new tape on there to get it ready for next season. But just to explain what that is all about. Now the Krytac is a quick change spring, so I can just throw a flathead screwdriver on there, or whichever, to put some pressure on there, and go ahead and get that spring out. Spring looks relatively decent shape. Go ahead and get these screws out. Upon opening it up, there is plastic shrapnel, and sure enough, take a look at that. Piston failure in the rear. Wow. I don't know if that'd necessarily be the first ever, but at least for me, that's impressive. At least the rest of it seems intact, so obviously this will have to be replaced, but luckily enough, that was, as it looks right now, the only thing, but a little bit greasy. That seems to be the only thing at first that looks broken. So I'm going to take this all right apart. And again, this is after about 14,000-ish rounds. Now, how do I know that number? Well, with the gate aster, it's so awesome that you're able to have a BB counter on it and know roughly what you're dealing with. So inside here, otherwise, it does not look too bad. We'll start taking these gears out one by one. Of course, I'm inspecting these as I go. This gear actually doesn't look too bad. The bevel gear, yeah, everything. Gears do not look really ground down. There's a couple rough spots here. Oh yeah, maybe you can see it. Try to get it in here, but on the inside of it, it is definitely rough. It's not bad, but I do have extra gears, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and replace that. Selector gear again. Everything looks for the most part pretty good. They don't look like they're chewed up very roughly. And now the spur gear. Again, everything looks pretty good. Yeah, so I mean, I think if it wasn't a squad support weapon to where I was just doing regular AEG stuff, rifleman, semi-auto, that sort of thing, I probably wouldn't worry too much about replacing those gears, but because of the fact that it is such an important role and those are kind of beaten down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and replace that. Other than that, everything in here looks pretty good. Other side of the gearbox as well. Right now what I'm also inspecting and looking for is to see if there's, like, for lack of a better word, like scraping marks or burn marks on the metal part, because what that can indicate is if the shimming was not enough. And I see some round spots here, but that, as I'm touching it, that's just grease. That's not the actual gears dragging. So there's that. One thing I'm debating, I'm going to try to test out, is this is the Maxx Speed trigger, I think it's called. I'll put a link in there, but it's got these little adjustment points on the top and bottom, little adjustment stud screws, to where you can finer tune this in to where you can have to just barely feather it to react. Now, yes, the Aster does allow you to adjust the pull, but what this other spring or other trigger will let me do too is cover up that over pull, so I'm not having to pull too far back. So yeah, so that's going to be the major things there. So in summary, we're going to be replacing the gear set, reshimming the gears, replacing the piston. I'll keep the piston head, the Maxx piston head, and I'll just put it onto the new one. And we're going to test that trigger out. Okay, so now that I've got the gearbox broken down, I will be replacing the bevel gear. Now, there's a couple different style ones for Krytac apparently, but they should both be the same. This is the bevel gear currently out of my LMG, and it's not in bad shape, but I'll try to get a picture. It might be better than the camera, but if you can see, the inside here is very much chipped away, and it's starting to come down the teeth quite far. Like this stuff right here, they're almost halfway through, and I reckon it would not be too many more rounds before I'd have a catastrophic gear failure on this. I'm just going to get rid of it. They're not really that expensive to replace overall. Hop up, you can find some gear sets for $10 to $25. I found a Krytac one for around that. So this is also another Krytac bevel. It's a little different as far as the style. I'm hoping that that's not really going to create an early failure on this, because this one here is all beefed up, as you can see, and the one on my right hand is kind of yeah, it's different. Guess we'll find out together. But at least the actual gears here are in pretty much perfect condition, so that is what I am going for with that. The other two gears that I originally had are fine. They're still in relatively awesome shape as far as I'm concerned, especially after that many rounds, so I'll leave those. And with that, that's going to need to be reshimmed. Anytime you change even one gear out, everything has to be reshimmed. It's a harsh pain, but a real one nonetheless. Also, as I'm doing my inspection after this season, I'm seeing that the this has both style. Of course, it's slipping me. The bearings and bushings. The main gear for the bevel is just a regular bearing, but the big thing after a while just is that this gear has a lot of wobble inside of there. So, and with this gear right here being new, I know that it's not because the pole there is being worn down. No, these are got quite a bit of play in them. And even when you look, hopefully you might be able to see in there, you can just see that there's just quite a bit. So these should be replaced, and after that many rounds, it does not surprise me. Typical rifleman DMRs, you probably won't have to deal with it nearly as much. That also being said, the gear on, or not the gear, the bushing bearing for the Spur gear is what makes these Krytac gearboxes unique. I don't know, I'll try to get like a weird angle here, see if you can see, but right here it sticks up just ever so slightly, and that is what makes their Spur gear different. As you can see, they've got like it's just a spring of sort in there that allows it to keep its balance and not need as many shims. Versus, I don't even know what this one came from, but this is a Spur gear you might see normally that's got that little metal in the middle, and even the pole, or axis rather, is a slight different size. So when I go to replace that, it might be a little interesting on that. I might have to use quite a bit of shims, but I've got Prometheus shims I could use, or Mad Bull. I'll probably just go with the Prometheus. It's all a different brand. They're both good quality. I haven't really found that one was better or worse than the other. I will try these though. These are the G-Force, G&L. I can't remember exactly, but these bearings I have tried on a couple different builds, and I absolutely love them. They just, the quality is very good, and if I can fit them in here, I will, but I'm not exactly sure. So what I will try is taking out one of the easier sides first and pushing it out. One thing to make note, when you do actually push these out, if you're going to try to save them, like the first one I'm going to try to, just in case these sizes don't fit well, you want to be very, very careful when you're punching these out. Just take your time, because if you go crazy on them, bend them, break them, then you're definitely going to have to hunt down your other bearings. Krytacs are just weird like that. Some of the other gearboxes, G&Gs and stuff I've dealt with, it's pretty standard, but there are obviously different sizes, so make sure you check on that. Okay, so the one side I've got the bearings out and put the new ones in. The process on this is relatively easy, just taking the hole punch and giving a little tap, and they come right out. This one, on the other hand, the other side with the selector plate and everything, that's going to be more difficult, because for these two gears, or two spots we got to get to, we're going to have to get access to that. So the only way to do that is, first we've got to get our safety latch out of the way so that we can slide that selector plate out of there. So we'll get this out. There we go. Slide it out, and then from here we should be able to slide this forward a little more and be able to pop that right out. Now make sure that you, especially these Krytacs here, you gotta be careful with the gears, because they can pop out. So just you take your time, ever so slowly lift it up. Then once you clear those gears, you should be able to pull it right back. There we go. So now we've got that out of the way, and as long as I'm here, I'll get these guys, because you have to get them out of the way in order to get full access to all of these. Clean this up a little bit. All right. And now from here, it's just a simple, try to get the biggest hole punch that you can to go over them. Not like the smallest, this is about the next size up that I can get to. So I'll just give it just a little tap. There we go. That is all set, and I will take the other ones here. And this is the first time for me seeing the this part of the gearbox, and What's interesting too is I'm noticing that I don't know if you can see it here, I'm going to try, but where that bearing bushing is, there's also a little lip on top of the gearbox that holds it up a bit. So that's pretty interesting. I'm guessing that that's what makes it a little different with their gear. If you really wanted to, I think that's probably where some people have been talking about modifying it so they can put pretty much any type of gears in, like SHS and stuff. That's probably what they're talking about now that I can actually physically see. So that's the quick setup on that change. We'll get the other stuff in here. It's just the reverse order. So we'll put the gears back in here. So we got that. And this bad boy. Now make sure when you do put these in for your ambidextrous here for your Krytac that this is lined up with your selector plate, so you're not setting it to where it should be on safe, but the way it's set up it looks like it's on full auto or semi-auto or whichever. So, and these plates they slide right in, barely any issue. So just, if you have to though, take your time with them. It's one of those things, just do not force them. They're just a piece of plastic basically, so they can break relatively easily. So just take your time with that. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Functions test, we're good.